pilih saja, buat dalam satu ni, words, and then hantar kat doktor. Boleh? Boleh. Kopi tu je, nak salutation tu je.
Kecuali Dr. Tan Sri Johan Jaafar.
Hashtag ni kau
Nanti takut tersilap. Saya letak
tahu tahu mana? I mean nak bagi nak kopi macam mana? Sebab ada conteng ni.
Tak ada. Yang ni ada doktor.
Okey.
Ada.
Ya, okey. Okey, ambil yang tu je. Lepas tu letak dalam words. Okey. Abdul Aziz. Yang lain semua nak bagi kat Dr. Deti ya.
Assalamualaikum and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin today's event, we shall welcome our distinguished guests and participants to enjoy the refreshments that has been prepared. You may utilize this time to network with your peers and register at the designated registration area. Once settled, we encourage everyone to allocate their seat and put your phone in silent mode, as we will begin the event right on time. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, Associate Professor Datin Dr. Aini Masnina Abdul Manaf, Deputy Dean of Academic and Internalization, Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, Kuliah of Islamic Knowledge and Human Sciences, AHAS KIRKHS, IIUM. Professor Datuk Dr. Abdul Aziz, Dean of ESTAC, IIUM. Tan Sri Johan Jafar, National Journalism Laureate, Media Icon and Thought Leader. Associate Professor Dr. Tengku Siti Aisyah Tengku Azman, Head of the Communication Department, AHAS KIRKHS. Associate Professor Technologist Dr. Shafiza Muhammad, COMET Coordinator and COMETIC 2024 Director. Collaborators from the Institute of Public Relations Malaysia, IPRM, Communication and Multimedia Content Forum, CMCF. Esteemed guests, paper presenters, participants, and students. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. Welcome to the Communication and Media Center International Conference, COMETIC 2024. My name is Janani Arifah binti Muhammad Jalaluddin, and I'll be your Master of Ceremony for today. Honorable guests, COMETIC 2024 focuses on its main theme, the communication and media pulse reflecting values and impact, where its central discussion revolve around issues and developments of communication and media practices in this age of digital and information. The International Conference is an important medium for industry leaders and scholars, stakeholders, and the public sector to engage in a collaborative and extensive research, inclusive of penetrating dialogues and discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, to bless our event for today, we would like to invite Brother Nick Ehsan to lead the Dua recitation. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an mubarakan marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan mubarakan ma'suma wa la taj'alillahumma fina wa ala ma'ana shaqiyan wa la mahruma. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير اللهم طول أعمارنا وصحح أجسادنا وثبت إيماننا ووسع أرزاقنا وحسن أخلاقنا ونور قلوبنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اجعلنا من أهل الخير وجعلنا من أهل البركة وجعلنا من أهل المغفرة اللهم اجعلنا من أهل الجنة وجعلنا من أهل الفردوس الأعلى برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اجعل مجلسنا هذا مجلسا مباركا لأصحابنا وأهلنا وجيراننا وضيوفنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We express our gratitude to you for allowing us to attend the launching ceremony of Communication and Media Center COMETIC 2024 on this auspicious morning. Ya Allah, we ask you for the safety of our religion and the welfare of our body. O Allah, Lord of the implementing authority, make the days that we have gone through start with your mercy, continue with your blessing, and end with your forgiveness. And also make the days that we have gone through with guidance and with victory of excellence. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you very much to Brother Nick Ehsan. To proceed with our event for today, we invite Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Syed Arabi Aidid, the advisor of COMET and the fourth rector of IIUM, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Please welcome.
you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah bil alamin. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning and selamat pagi. It is my great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all of you. I think I can represent the Communication and Media Center, COMET, to welcome all of you to this prestigious ISTAC Hall for the esteemed COMETIC'24 event. I would like to offer a special welcome to our distinguished guests, i.e. the Acting Dean of AHAS KRKS, Associate Professor Datin Aini Maznina Manaf, and the Dean of ISTAC, Professor Datuk Aziz Bagaud, and Tan Sri Johan Jaafar, Tokoh Wartawan Negara, members of academia and members of the public who are gathered here this morning to participate in this international conference centered around the theme Communication and Media Pause, reflecting values and impacts. The conference will be structured around three distinguished keynote speakers: Tan Sri Johan Jaafar himself, Professor Daya Kishan Tusu, President of the International Association for Media and Communication Research, and Dr. Roni Adikaria, Board Member of the Hawaii Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, who was once a former professor at the University of Science, Malaysia, Penang. In addition, there will be two plenary sessions. The first session will focus on leadership in the media industry, while the second will address the dilemmas in crisis communication. The conference will also feature a presentation of 53 papers spanning the two-day event. Ladies and gentlemen, challenging times demand captivating speakers with fascinating topics that will truly ignite the audience interest and enthusiasm. With this short note, I want to express again my gratitude for your presence and hope that you all will have an enjoyable and enriching experience at this two-day event. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Datuk Sri, for the welcoming speech. Ladies and gentlemen, to officiate the COMETIC 2024, we would like to invite Associate Professor Datin Dr. Aini Maznina Abdul Manaf for the official launching of the Communication and Media Center International Conference, COMETIC 2024. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Professor Datuk Dr. Aziz Bagus, the Dean of ISTAC, Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Said Arabi Aidit, the Advisor of Communication and Media Center and also the former Rector of IUM, Honorable Tan Sri Johan Jaafar, National Journalism Laureate, Associate Professor Dr. Tengku Siti Aisyah, the Head Department of Communication, Associate Professor Technologist Dr. Shafizan Muhammad, the Chairperson of COMETIC 2024, distinguished guests, speakers, and participants of COMETIC'24. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. On behalf of the Dean of Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, Kuliah of Islamic Religious Knowledge and Human Sciences, AHAS KRKHS, Professor Dr. Shukran Abdul Rahman, who cannot be with us today due to another commitment, it would be my honor to convey his message to all of you in my opening speech this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome all participants and presenters to the Communication and Media Center International Conference, COMETIC 2024. This year's theme, Communication and Media Pause, reflecting values and impact, invites us to take a moment to reflect on the role of media in shaping our media and to assess its broader impacts on public values and behavior. I am proud to see the roles of AHAS KRKHS in contributing to this critical conversation befitting our mission to promote the application of behavioral science knowledge and Islamic principles in addressing communication and media development, and in turn support the integration of revealed knowledge and human sciences agenda. At AHAS KRKHS, we aim to foster critical thinking and deep sense of responsibility in our students, scholars, and practitioners. The Kuliah's broader mission to integrate Islamic principles with contemporary challenges is well reflected in this conference, as we explore how communication and media can serve not only professional and economic goals, but also higher ethical standards. This year's theme is especially timely given the rapid changes in media technologies and the challenges of balancing transparency, ethics, and the need for adaptation. As the world of media becomes more intertwined with our daily lives, it is essential that we pause and reflect on the values driving our communications and the long-term impacts they have on society. The theme also reflects the need for a balance between innovation and ethical responsibility. The media industry is facing unprecedented transformations, and it is imperative that leaders in this field remain committed to core values such as truth, integrity, and inclusivity. The conference serves as an important platform for exploring these questions, offering space for deep reflection on how media can be both a positive force for societal good and a tool that must be used with care and responsibility. I would like also to acknowledge the exceptional work of the Communication and Media Center, COMET, in organizing this event. Their tireless efforts have brought together to a diverse group of experts, scholars, and also industry leaders to share their insights on the rapidly evolving media landscape. I too extend my gratitude to all participants for their contributions to making this conference a reality. I'm confident that this conference will provide a platform for meaningful dialogue, collaboration, and reflection on the pressing issues facing media today. May this conference inspire us all to pause, reflect, and commit to a media landscape that upholds values and serves the greater good. Finally, congratulations once again to COMET and the Department of Communication, AHAS KRKHS, for all these initiatives and achievements. Without further ado, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I hereby launch Communication and Media Center International Conference, COMETIC 2024. Thank you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Associate Professor Datin Dr. Aini Masnina, for the officiation. And now, we present to you the official montage of COMETIC 2024. With that, ladies and gentlemen, our COMETIC 2024 shall begin. For your information, today's conference will include a keynote speech on media integrity, reflections on upholding truth, transparency, and trust. Then, a parallel session will be discussed on corporate communication and branding, science and health communication, and global communication and diplomacy, followed by a plenary session moderated by a media and communication expert, featuring 3 distinguished speakers from the same field. We will end our day with a special session with Al Jazeera Media Institute, covering a topic on challenging the status quo, Al Jazeera's role in exposing the genocide in Gaza. Ladies and gentlemen, to proceed with our agenda for today, we are pleased to introduce our first esteemed keynote speaker, Tan Sri Johan Jaffa, National Journalism Laureate, who will be addressing his speech on media integrity, reflections on upholding truth, transparency, and trust. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause by inviting our first keynote speaker. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Yang berbahagia Associate Professor Dr. Tengku Siti Aisyah, yang saya hargai sahabat lama saya Profesor Datuk Seri Dr. Said Arabi bin Said Abdullah Aidid, yang saya muliakan yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Abdul Aziz, saudara dan saudari yang saya hormati sekalian. I must admit that this is one of the toughest topics ever assigned to me. I'm supposed to talk about media integrity with reference to these keywords: truth, transparency, and trust. But more importantly is the verb uphold, to uphold or upholding truth, transparency, and trust. In an imperfect world we are living in, truth, transparency, and trust are virtues that are fast dissipating. The discourse is therefore confined to these elegant walls of Istek, no further. So to some quarters, it is almost ironical that we even talk about it. But we must. In a world where distrust of almost everything, the government, the media, even the academia is overwhelming, it is about time to relook at ourselves, and to quote Shakespeare in Julius Caesar, for the eye sees not itself, but by reflections. We'll all know that all governments are struggling to regain trust of citizens. That was the outcome of a global survey spanning 40 countries. It revealed how government ministers and officials are failing spectacularly to keep up with the changes in the way that voters get information and form opinion. Weakened and distrusted central government around the world have been incapable of responding to the internet and the social media. Everyone in the position of power is being defined by social media, even us. Ladies and gentlemen, there is also an issue about the shifting dominance of social media platforms. At one time, Facebook was the supremo, the platform used by billions, so one can imagine the influence. Then came Twitter, or now X. A few years ago, TikTok took center stage. And as we learned in 2022, in our own general election, that was largely decided by the power of TikTok. And the TikTokers range from social media savvy ustaz and ustazah to paid influencers that almost derail the chances of Pakatan Harapan to win in that election. Since one of the keywords is trust, let us look at the world's most and least trusted profession. This is interesting. The graphic shows doctors, scientists, and teachers are on the top in terms of the world's most and least trusted professionals. One, however, must take note that this was done in 2021, but I believe nothing much has changed. The lowest on the chart are politicians and government ministers. Let's look at another chart. Yet again, doctors are top, followed by teachers, scientists, the armed forces personnel, judges, bankers. There is a question mark. Bankers, police, and others. It is not too far different from the global findings on the right. Now, I'm not trying to be apologetic here. We are not politicians. We are not politicians, and we are not in the business of becoming popular. If you look at the top bottom of the chart, lawyers, business leaders, civil servants, and journalists are at the bottom 8 of the chart. At least politicians are 3 notches below us. We are just doing our jobs. We are not taking advantage of other people's miseries or misfortune. We do not want our names on the Hall of Fame just for exposing the misdeeds of our political masters or the scandals of corrupt personalities or the shenanigans and proclivities of entertainment personalities. We don't find pleasure in reporting what GISB Holdings have done to children under their care, or the fact that an aide of a former minister has a safe house that is stashed with 1.5 million Sing dollars, or the divorce case of Fatah and Fazura. We bring news to your living room, real news, not fake news, not deep fake. We trend on unfamiliar and dangerous terrains. We encounter dangerous people. We cover conflicts and wars. We play the role of the eyes and ears of the people. We bring people's stories to you and the misdeeds of leaders, their transgressions, corruption, nepotism, and to quote a familiar phrase from the Indonesian, their cawe-cawe. Journalists die in conflict areas, bringing wars and skirmishes to readers, listeners, and viewers. Just remember how many of our brothers and sisters are killed or injured in Palestine right now, and in Lebanon, or in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Sometimes armies purposely targeted journalists. Just to give you an idea, this is the deadliest period for journalists in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict since 1992, and the deadliest conflict for journalists in the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, as of September 2024, the Committee to Protect Journalists reported that 116 journalists were killed. 111 Palestinian, 2 Israeli journalists, and 3 Lebanese. As of July 2024, the count by the Gaza government media office placed the number of Palestinian journalists who are killed is at 160. I was in Afghanistan in the spring of 1989. Take a good look at this picture. You know a non-Afghan when you see this slide. Afghans don't wear glasses. I mean, not those living in the cities, but those who are living in the valleys and the mountains. And it was somewhere in Kunar province, not far from Jalalabad, covering the civil war there. I knew what it was like. I experienced firsthand the situation on the ground. The so-labeled ragtag army, the Mujahideen as they were called, never formally trained and who were made up of farmers and laborers and ranging from ages of 14 to 80, fighting the second most powerful army in the world. And I knew why they won. And I've seen them battling the well-equipped Russian soldiers. Sadly, after chasing away the Russians, they fought among themselves, and they still do. If you take a look at this picture, you can see the concept of security as far as they are concerned. Those are boxes of ammunition behind them. So they believe that they can be safe because they put those boxes there. Just one bullet that pierces through one of these boxes, they'll be blown sky high. That is their concept of security. And I met this boy by the name of Sher Muhammad. He was hardly 14. He was somewhere from northern Afghanistan. His father and mother died. The whole family died because of the war. And he was carrying that Kalashnikov. He was 14 years old. These are the fighters. These are the so-called Mujahideens who fought the Russian back in 1989. And there is another incredible picture that we took. This old man was reading a Quran, and look at how he guards himself. He thought that by putting those boxes of ammunition around him, he would be safe. Imagine, the kind of, the sense of security that he had. And these are not trained people. These are not trained soldiers. These are ragtag army, people who fought for the freedom of their land. That is why they were called the Mujahideens. Now, I was in Bosnia-Herzegovina. I was in South Africa and Somalia, Sri Lanka, and other places. It was not the adrenaline that propelled me or propelled people like me, nor the fame and the fortune. Again, we are just doing our job, so do not blame us. Now, perhaps we are indeed doing a thankless job, but we are professionals. We go to jail, we got hurt, some of us died. Occupational hazards, you may say. But we do what we are supposed to do. Forget about the notions of the romance of journalism or the movies you watch about brave journalists like this gentleman here, covering the war and coming back to their loved ones. Happy ending guaranteed despite the odds and challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, journalism is more than that. I have my fair share of adventures meeting some of the most interesting personalities in the world. I've met and interviewed some of them. That is President Suharto. He was in Indonesia for 32 long years as the longest serving president of Indonesia. I've met and interviewed Nelson Mandela. He was incarcerated for 27 long years. And I've met Václav Havel. He was the president of Czech Republic when Czechoslovakia split into Czech Republic and Slovakia. He was the first president. And of course, the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher, J.P. Kalam. And interestingly, one of the most interesting characters I've met was Saddam Hussein. That was in 1998. He was launching the rebuilt, supposedly Mesopotamia, the Hanging Garden of Babylon. He believed that he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, the builder during the time of the first Mesopotamian empire. So he actually believed that he was in Iraq for a purpose, that is to build Iraq like Nebuchadnezzar. And of course, I met this gentleman on the left, is Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, in the spring of 1999. He was leading Hizbi Islami, the biggest and the most organized Afghan organization at that time. He was fighting the Russian who invaded the country in 1979. And together with others like Ahmad Shah Massoud, better known as the Lion of Panjshir, that is at the bottom of the picture, and of course Burhanuddin Rabbani, the president, the interim president of the government in exile for Afghanistan. You can see him, the bearded one, with the white beard. And Rashid Dastum, this is a notorious tribal lord, somewhere in Mazar Sharif. And they were fighting the Russian and the puppet president at the time, that is Najibullah. They were hailed as heroes and epitomized in Hollywood movies. Remember the character in one of the Rambo movies where he fought alongside the Mujahideen, and there was one quotation that people will always remember: beware the venom of the cobra and the vengeance of the Afghan. So, and it took the attack on New York in September 2001, and suddenly every Mujahideen in Afghanistan became a terrorist, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar included. What a linguistic twist can do to a people and to a nation. Ironically, ladies and gentlemen, not one who were allegedly involved in the 9/11 incident was an Afghan. Political leadership almost everywhere in the world have not been kind nor fair to journalists, and in most cases, and Malaysia too, have a checkered history in relation with journalists. Like me, many Utusan Melayu editors lost their job. I wasn't alone, joining the ranks of Tan Sri Mazlan Nordin, Tan Sri Malan Abdullah, and Tan Sri Zainuddin Maidin. We carried that badge of honor in being fired as editors. Perhaps it is true they say, good soldiers don't die, they just fade away. Good editors don't fade away, they got fired. I would like to believe that we were all collateral damage in the grand political chess game involving some of the most refined and consummate conspirators and political operators ever to roam the land. Technically, I resigned in July 1998, some 3 months before Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim was fired on the 2nd of September 1998. They have to clean up Utusan Melayu, Berita Harian, and TV3 from Anwar's influence or Anwar's friend in the media, as the media was very powerful back then, and that was before the social media played an important role. I was fortunate because my predecessor, Said Zahari, was incarcerated for 17 long years. Another journalist, the legendary Tan Sri Samad Ismail, was in prison 3 times, twice under the British colonial rule, and sadly, during the reign of his fellow compatriots, that he was in prison for 5 long years. The country owes an apology to Said Zahari, Tan Sri Samad Ismail, Ishak Haji Muhammad, Opak Sako, and many others, for placing them as enemies of the state. In actual fact, enemies to some very powerful personalities and oligarchs running the state. Now, you have a better idea of what truth, transparency, and trust is all about. It is a matter of definition for the ruling elite, but for us, those are sacrosanct. We abide by the principle, we believe in those principles. Let me give you a bit of context of the company that I used to work with back in the 90s, Utusan Melayu. The newspaper company was set up in 1939, 86 years ago to be exact. But what is important to note is the role played by the Jawi paper at the height of the Malay national consciousness and political awareness prior to and after Merdeka or independence. Utusan Melayu was an audacious daily that dared to take risks Utusan Melayu became a formidable force that was credible and threatening to them. Even after Merdeka, Utusan Melayu was a thorn on the side of the Malay ruling elite who believed that Utusan Melayu was influenced by the leftists, mereka yang berhaluan kiri. And that was a good enough excuse for UMNO at the time to wrestle editorial control of Utusan Melayu in 1961. The journalists were up in arms, equipped with only determination and commitment. They fought back. They launched a strike that lasted 90 days, and they lost. As I've mentioned earlier, Said Zahari, the editor of the newspaper at the time, was taken under ISA and was left to languish in jail for 17 long years. The way I see it, what happened in 1961 was a defining moment in the history of newspapering in this country. Press freedom died at that moment, never to be recovered, perhaps forever. The fiercely independent journalists of Utusan Melayu paid dearly for their convictions. Those are my reflections on how I position media integrity within the context of upholding truth, transparency, and trust. And this is even tougher for me to talk about when the industry that I am in for more than 5 decades are in a state of despair. Here I am sharing with you an industry that is bleak and with an uncertain future. I was crowned Tokoh Wartawan Negara by my peers in May 2018, presented in an eventful and historic night organized by Malaysia Press Institute, or MPI. While I was proud to be among a handful of recipients over the years, all are or were great names in the world of journalism, and they were all legends. But there is also another frequently asked question that people ask veteran journalists like me. Was I the hang tua who placed loyalty above all else? I can't speak for others, but history will judge me for what I did, for the expose that I made, and for the leaders, including UMNO leaders, who I held accountable for their actions during my time. I lost my job eventually, but that has been due to the grand tussle between the then Prime Minister, Tun Mahathir Mohamad, and his deputy, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, in 1998, who incidentally is the current Prime Minister of Malaysia. There are people who have been asking me, why talk about freedom when there is none? Is it true that the Malaysian press have been cowed into believing that they have a role to play as agent of change in the process of pembangunan or development and kemajuan or progress? Are they being timid or silenced into submission? Or were they merely unapologetic cheerleaders for whoever at the helm, now Pakatan Harapan, before that UMNO and Barisan Nasional? Those are relevant questions. We have been asking those questions too as we went along. Were we complicit to some of the ills and injustices inflicted upon individuals or even our society over the years? Were we merely looking elsewhere when misdeeds became full-fledged scandals and those scandals later became an international disgrace? Sincerely, we ask those questions a lot. But to be honest, many of us tried our level best to ensure we play the role as expected of us. We did our best under such circumstances. There were times when we were not proud of what we did, but we believed that we have tried our level best. We made mistakes too. We were not supposed to take sides, but we did. And in one of my pieces in The Star on October the 1st, 2018, I asked the question that every one of us ought to be asking. Are we complicit in the 1MDB scandal? Why did most of us fail to voice our concerns when the 1MDB scandal was unfolding? My contention was that too many people, including the mainstream media, contributed to the problem by ignoring the red flags and choosing not to question the official line. In my piece, I wrote, One MDB is a slap on the face of a cowering media. One MDB is a wake-up call for the local media. Docility sucks. Never again that should happen. We must learn something from what happened in those years leading up to the full-fledged expose by Sarawak Report and other news portals. The truth is, there is no ultimate press freedom anywhere in the world. Even in the US, the so-called liberal press is being pitted against the conservative one. It is like the rest versus Fox News and the rest versus President Donald Trump. Someone famously said, freedom of the press belongs only to those who owns it. Yet the war of attrition against journalists is getting new traction. If Donald Trump wins the presidency again in this fight against Kamala Harris, which I'm not surprised if he wins, journalists are in for more troubling times. The United States of America is supposed to be a beacon of democracy and free press. Trump has called the fake news media enemy of the people. Trump's rhetoric is dangerous, for it incites more than just distrust and hatred towards the media. Ladies and gentlemen, newspapers have been dying in slow motion for a decade or so, and it is a reality. There is no future in the newspaper business, some would say. It can't be saved, even with the best of intentions. Media companies are facing losses. I'm not just talking about Utusan Melayu, even the mighty Media Prima, the company that I used to be the chairman, and the Star Publication and Astro are facing difficulties. Even Malaysia Kini, the loudest voice of reason online, is now having problems. We have to accept the fact that newspaper is more than just about the enterprise of newspapering. It is also about the conversation on reckless chauvinism and unapologetic political correctness, or about sex, lies, and democracy, the three things that will sell newspaper, they say. It is also about quality, not just about what the readers want. It is about our responsibility to do our best as journalists. It's about the role of the fourth estate. It is about accountability and fairness, and about bringing sanity to a reading public that is obsessed with film stars, celebrities, and more film stars and celebrities. It is about not relegating ourselves to prurient journalism, fixated with telling the official truth and avoiding dubious journalistic methods. We need to recognize the important fact that newspaper and the media as a whole are, first and foremost, business ventures. They are about money, about resources, about profit, about the bottom line. Why is that quality newspapers full? Why is that even notoriously explicit and salaciously sensational newspapers are suffering? Back then, editors are reminded of a famous but an enormous 19th century verse about Fleet Street, which is interesting. Tickle the public, make them grin. The more you tickle, the more you will win. Teach the public, you'll never get rich. You live like a beggar and die in the ditch. So don't try to teach your audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not just editors. We learn fast to make adaptation. We make money for our companies prospered. Back then, when I was at the helm of Utusan Melayu, the total advertising spending for Malaysia was about 3.5 billion, and 60% of that was for the newspapers, the rest for TV. People advertised in our papers were influential and a money-making venture. That was before the internet, before the whole enterprise of digital revolution disrupted our business. In fact, we labeled the onslaught as disruptive technologies with a hint of sarcasm. We thought that we were formidable. Many of the newspaper companies in Malaysia were forging ahead with lots of confidence into the digital world in the early 90s. We thought technology would propel us to greater heights. It did, at least for a while. I've seen it all, from typewriters to old-style newsroom, and old printing machines. Later, the newsroom became fully computerized. Yeah? Back then, the internet was still in infancy. Gone were the days when reporters were calling from phone booths and the layout of pages were done manually. We were excited. Handphones came, then short messages, system or SMS, WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, yeah, those were decades away. The digital revolution was a sure thing, but for us, we sincerely believe that that would help us out more than it should disrupt or destruct, even deconstruct us. How wrong we were. We were literally caught with our pants down. What we believed as unthinkable became inevitable. It affected us, our business, and the entire discipline of journalism, perhaps the future of the newspaper and the media. Journalism was being hollowed out by massive structural shift, readers' preferences, latest trends, and the cost of the newspaper business. To say that all newspaper companies are affected is an understatement. There are naysayers who believe that in the next 5 years, almost all newspapers in the world will cease to exist in their traditional form. The tide can't be changed. The die is cast. It is just a matter of time. If at all, the end is to be delayed, not halted. Ladies and gentlemen, then companies in Malaysia and elsewhere are shifting their ad spend to social media and digital platform. Media companies have a lot to complain about the big four: Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google. They have every reason to be unhappy. Many believe that these companies are the new imperialists of the internet age. They are the new colonizers of today's world. The imperial ambition knows no bound, some would argue. There is a ranging debate out there on how harmful the powers are in the hands of these tech titans. There are arguments about how online platforms are being used and their power is destructive and harmful. And this is only the beginning. They carry our news, but they don't pay. In fact, they make money from our hard work. That isn't fair. But we have to accept the reality that news business is not an exclusive right of media companies. Anyone can be a reporter. Backpack journalism is the in thing, whatever that means. The social media is real time. A nasty road accident outside Istek now will be on YouTube, real time, or on any of the social media platforms in minutes. There is no need to wait for the news bulletin updated by Ono Astro Awani or TV3 Bulletin Utama or at 8 p.m. tonight. But is serious journalism at stake? That has been the question. But at least there are people who still believe that the mainstream media remains the true main source of information of a platform that must continue to be trusted. Dato' A. Khadir Jassin, a veteran newsman himself and a former editor of the New Straits Times, who was the media and communication advisor to the Prime Minister Tun Mahathir Mohamad when he became the Prime Minister the second time, argued that the mainstream media industry comprised of trained and licensed professionals bound by ethics and laws in their pursuit for true and verified information. According to Khadir, it differs from social media, which is not news, but a social medium that can be used by anyone and everyone to say whatever they want, just like in the coffee shop. So we don't have to get muddled with what the social media offer, as correct information can only be obtained from the newspaper, radio, websites, and television. I'm sure many would disagree with Khadir. It is for us comforting to hear that. But we all agree that the internet is a cowboy realm. No country in the world can control social media. The advancement of telecommunication technology has disrupted humanity in many ways, and in the way we communicate, the way we govern, the way we educate ourselves, the way we live with our family. Humans have been in the control of their creation since the invention of the wheel, but not this one. We are losing control of the internet, the social media, and all that is associated with it. Digital technology is a monster unleashed. Communication technology today is heralded as the totem pole of freedom and free speech. Yes, we agree, information must be free, unedited, uncensored, and available to all. But today, with digitalization, we are looking at a frightening new meaning of the word freedom. Social media can easily be a weapon of mass destruction. Anyone can say anything. Anyone can spread lies. While it is a democratic tool, it is a scourge that when it is misused, irresponsibility, and rampantly, it can be dangerous. The finger is mightier than a thumb drive, which is mightier than a sword. Just look at the vitriol, the hatred, and the lies the social media is offering. Little wonder misinformation is a huge global humanitarian crisis. Fake news is the rule of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is the social media revolution is changing everything. We all know that and we all understand that. And they don't care about truth. But there is also a silver lining. What the mainstream media can do fast and effective, the social media can. Having said all that, I still believe in the freedom of the press. And I always believe that freedom of the press must come with responsibility. Just look at Indonesia, just for a second. There is an accusation that the government of President Joko Widodo or Jokowi is trying to curtail press freedom and freedom of expression. The truth is, Jokowi himself is being vilified by certain quarters of the media. Over the years, the press freedom in Indonesia is something that is not to be proud of. But within the scenario, many people are skeptical that the press will enjoy unrestricted freedom during the pilpres and the coming regional and district election or pemilihan kepala daerah, pilkada, and the election for governors or pemilihan umum gubernur or pilgub in November. But one must remember the election time this year is not fought just on the airwaves and the print media, but also in the social media. There is a new generation of Indonesians who are now familiar with who are not familiar with all the traditional media, and these are the Generation Z and the millennials. Now, YouTube channels in Indonesia are providing the space for open discussion. Every TV station and major newspapers have their own offerings on YouTube. On the airwave, TV stations are competing to get the best from their viewers and their listeners. Some of the talk shows are hugely popular in Indonesia. These are the number of internet users in Indonesia. These are some of the very popular and critical programs in Indonesia. For instance, Rosie, Panggung Demokrasi, Kontroversi, Q&A, Mata Najwa, Catatan Demokrasi, Indonesia Lawyers Club, and many others. These talk shows and podcasts are redefining the rules of engagement for its opponents. The debates are mostly civil despite its ferocity and harshness. Indonesians are good at laughing off heated debates. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the Indonesian society have matured politically. I've seen a robust press that cannot be compared with other Asian countries. And for me, the true winner of this pemilu that was held in February this year was actually the free press. We need probably another 10 years to reach that level. And then there is also this fufu-fafa debacle. The fufu-fafa debacle. It was an old online posting that appeared on an online forum, Kaskus, and Kaskus was created sometime in November 1999. There was an account registered as fufu-fafa in Kaskus. Just like any other account, fufu-fafa was critical of certain individual, making fun of others, explicitly showing adoration for certain celebrities, at times even funny, and mentioning body parts of certain celebrities, and linked to sensitive content like pornographic sign-ups and things like that. But the account comes to haunt the person 10 years later in a shocking and dramatic way. The account is the biggest single internet debacle in the history of Indonesia. This is a case allegedly involving the Deputy President-elect Gibran Rakabuming Raka, the eldest son of President Joko Widodo. He is to be sworn in on October 20th, that is 4 days from now, after winning the president election, pioneering Prabowo Subianto. The account is sadly redefining the presidential partnership in Indonesia. So why is the posting of a 26-year-old at the time matters now? For one, he is to be the next vice president of the Republic of Indonesia, the fourth most populous country in the world. There is an issue of integrity, conduct, and behavior as a leader. Gibran is the second most powerful person in Indonesia come October 20. If anything happened to the 72-year-old Prabowo, Gibran is going to be the next president. Now, this is an advice for young people like you. Be careful with your postings. Those postings will haunt you 10 years from now if you intend to be a politician or the dean or even the rector of UIA, University Islam Antarabangsa. So be cautious. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, what about the future? It is time the media practitioners look hard and deep into themselves. Things are changing. Media practitioners need to make adjustments, to adapt, or they will perish. But for me, the most important thing is to ensure that there is a free and responsible press as a pillar of the vibrant working democracy. I applaud the government of Datuk Sri Najib Tun Razak, who designate a day as the National Journalist Day or Hari Wartawan Negara Hawana. The date chosen was May 29, the day Utusan Melayu was born in 1939. Hawana is about the nation's recognition of the role of journalists as a whole. They are the unsung heroes in the country's narrative. Nothing has changed regarding the needs for independence of journalists working anywhere in the world, especially in developing countries. But Indonesia has showed us how a free and vibrant media is playing a positive role in nation building. Free press is the bedrock of democracy. And yes, freedom of the press must come with responsibility. So it is incumbent upon journalist fraternity to prove its worth. Politicians come and go, journalists stay. That has been my advice to younger generation of journalists. They are judged by the adherence to the code and the acceptable standard of accountability that is expected of them, not by their loyalty to the political masters. The demand for fairness and independence is louder now than ever. I understand the love-hate relationship or the hate-hate relationship between the press and the public, and sometimes the press and the ruling elite. No one really like us, politicians, business tycoons, the oligarchs, and more so the corrupt and the crooked politician, technocrat, and businessmen and women. But my brothers and sisters in the press will strengthen the resolve to play the critical role in society. But more importantly, the government of the day must allow us to work under a conducive atmosphere without fear and favor. They must review, repeal, and abolish archaic laws that have lost its relevance. The last thing we expect is the freedom and the independence of the press to be trampled in any way for various political needs through laws that will stifle the journalists and the state apparatuses to control free press. Ladies and gentlemen, only then, an unrepentant orang surat kabar lama like me believe that media integrity will be achieved and truth, transparency, and trust can be upheld. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Tan Sri for your insightful speech. Thank you once again to Tan Sri for the speech just now. Ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to invite Associate Professor Datin Dr. Aini Maznina, accompanied by Professor Datuk Sri Dr. Said Arabi Aidit and Professor Dr. Abdul Aziz Burguth, to present the token of appreciation to Tan Sri Johan Jafar as our speaker for this session. Please welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm round of applause. Thank you once again to Tan Sri Johan, Professor Aini, Professor Said, and Professor Abdulaziz. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a quick 15-minute tea break. Then we will continue our conference presentation with the first parallel session. In total, we have 3 rooms according to their respective themes. Parallel Session 1A will take place at the Ibn Khaldun Conference Room and will be discussing on science and health communication. Parallel Session 1B will be at Seminar Room 7 on corporate communication and branding. And last but not least, Parallel Session 1C will be at Seminar Room 8, discussing on global communication and diplomacy. After Parallel Session 1 has ended, our participants will be assisted to the courtyard for the Syed Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas Library in site visit. Then you may head down to Eastak Banquet Hall for the lunch and networking break. Finally, we will reconvene back here at 2:15 p.m. for the afternoon session. With that, I will gladly like to invite our special guests, paper presenters, participants, and fellow students for a light refreshment to be served at the banquet hall, which is just opposite the main hall that we are in right now. And to our committee members, kindly assist our guests accordingly. With that, thank you very much, and we'll meet again.